My name is Anna Rowland and I work with the Echo Film, and today we are making a video with climbers for bat conservation. Our goal of this video is to bring together two different groups: climbers who don't necessarily know a lot about wildlife, and wildlife lovers who don't necessarily know a lot about climbing. So to do that, we're gonna go up to Duncan's Ridge and climb with climbers for bat conservation. And I've never climbed before, so we'll see how it goes. Waking up this morning, I was a little nervous. I know that I'm going with a group of people who climb a lot, but I'm here for the bats. But I'm really ready to climb. I think it sounds really fun, and we'll see how it goes. I feel like I kind of want to get into climbing now. It was really fun. I learned a lot of tips and tricks from people we climbed with, so yeah, good day. The benefit to this organization is that biologists get information that they normally wouldn't have access to, and climbers just get to share their passion and what they find on their climbs.
I'm Rob Schorr. I'm from Colorado State University and an organization called Climbers for Bat Conservation. And our whole interest is to understand how bats use rock surfaces and vertical faces. So partnering with climbers to learn about bats has been a fun way for us to understand bat ecology and where populations are. I was a biologist first, and I had very little experience in climbing. I'd done it once before, and remembered that I enjoyed it, but I had no knowledge of how to do it. And it wasn't until, working with climbers that I started falling in love with the idea of climbing and finding bats. Because bats have been declining here in North America pretty dramatically over the last 15 years or so, we don't always know where bats are. They're really secretive and they can hide in really tight places. And rock cracks is one of those. And so finding out that information allows us to then possibly go back again and find out how they're doing over time. So usually what climbers are telling us sometimes is just specific as maybe we saw guano in a crack, but quite often they actually see bats in cracks, which is phenomenal because I study bats and I don't always get to see bats. The fact that they, in the recreational activity, get to see up front and close where bats are living is phenomenal. For the longest time, I think climbers see bats, they just don't know who to tell.
Yeah.
And so each time we've gone to an area we've gotten more information just by talking with climbers there. Like this area, Duncan's Ridge, is that the more we talked to them, we found out that climbers are seeing bats in the cracks here. I think everybody has seen a horror movie where a bat has been profiled. So they're already fighting this misnomer idea that they're vicious, they all drink blood, and they're all vampires. There's only 3 species of vampires, and they're all pretty tame as far as their demeanor. None of them have the evil outlook that has been portrayed so often in film and books. And so biologists are always fighting that historic imagery that was used so well to sell movies and books and what have you. Even before white nose, it was challenging to understand bats because they fly, is that they use 3-dimensional space in ways that only birds do, and insects. So most of our biological work is on the ground, and so we don't always appreciate how high up they can go, so we don't get a glimpse of where they spend time. So that's problematic. They are nocturnal, predominantly, here in North America. They hide out in really secretive places that are tough for us to get to. Caves and mines are some of the hardest, and that's when we'll be able to document because people sometimes go in those. And that they echolocate, is they don't vocalize in air and sound that we can hear. And so it's really challenging to study them. And so that's why I've been so excited by learning from climbers. Seeing bats at thousands of feet off the ground, residing in cracks as that's home, that's their front porch, but they're thousands of feet off the ground. And we as humans tend to think of our wildlife and landscapes at scales that we interact with. And thinking of bats in those vertical spaces is just fascinating to me. Most of the problems with how something like COVID gets into human populations is how humans encroach on wildlife habitat and populations. For the longest time is that providing that kind of habitat and space has allowed those diseases to stay apart from humans and not have that opportunity to transmit to humans. So the argument I've always made is that we have the best way of preventing those by providing space for those species, and so we don't have those kind of crossover events. As far as working with bats, that also became problematic because biologists in North America were fearful that if we, as humans, have it, we could potentially transmit it to North American bats because it's a coronavirus that's closely related to ones that other bats carry. And so we were very careful about how we interacted with bats, wearing masks and wearing gloves to make sure that we couldn't then be a transmission portal for North American bats. That can sometimes be a challenge to know exactly where you can see bats in abundance. If you're ever in Austin, Texas, there's a million bats plus that come out of Congress Avenue Bridge right in town. That's a great way to see them. If you're in Colorado, there's the Orient Mine where up to 1 million bats come out in the evening. If you're in an area like this, as the sun is setting over Horsetooth Reservoir, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see bats flying out over the reservoir here and up along the cliffs. It's challenging to pinpoint one area where you can reliably see bats, but that's why I'm partnering with climbers. I want to know where those spots are. The best way of getting involved is find our website. If you are a climber and you've seen bats, you can either email us or find our link on our website now. We now have a mapping data portal where climbers can submit data, and providing us that kind of information just gives us an opportunity to see how bats use cracks and where we should be looking for populations. Eventually, we would love to have teams of climbers that we pay to go look in areas to look for bats. Fingers crossed. Climbers for Bat Conservation, the whole name includes the two parts that we love so much about this organization, understanding bat biology, but also climbing. And if you see the excitement on my face about being able to climb here, is that you know how infectious climbing can be. And so to think that you can provide the opportunity to understand more about the species that inhabit these areas and do recreational climbing, I think this is a fun partnership, not just for learning about bats, but also enjoying the outdoors in a new way and feeling like you can contribute to some conservation goal that historically I don't think climbers knew they had an opportunity to participate in.